left my family behind, and then they tried to ruin my life. Here's what happened next. 6 months ago, I was standing in the middle of my almost empty apartment in Denver, staring at the last few boxes that needed to be packed before I left for Seattle. The walls around me echoed with silence, and the only sounds came from the tape dispenser clicking as I sealed up another box full of memories I wasn't sure I wanted to keep. My friends Mia and Ryan were helping me, carrying heavier boxes than they probably should, and asking questions I didn't really want to answer. Why didn't I tell my family I was leaving? Why did I keep this secret for so long? I gave the usual excuse about needing a fresh start and not wanting any drama, but the truth was much harsher. My family never cared enough to notice when I wasn't around. Growing up, everything was about Jason, my older brother who was always the golden child. He's 3 years older than me, and since I was a little girl, it was clear my parents saw him as the success story and me as the afterthought. When I won a citywide science competition at age 9, my parents barely nodded before switching the conversation back to Jason's football game. It wasn't that they didn't love me, or at least I don't think they did, but their attention was reserved for Jason's accomplishments, never mine. I remember sitting at the dinner table, my hands folded tightly, while my mother beamed about Jason's latest trophy and completely ignored the trophy I held quietly in my lap. By the time I hit high school, the pattern was painfully clear. Jason got to attend a fancy private school on my parents' dime, while I worked 2 part-time jobs to cover my own expenses and save up for college applications. When I turned 18, they sat me down and told me I was on my own. Their education money was spent on Jason, and if I wanted to go to college, I had to find a way myself. At the time, I was crushed, but I pushed through. I earned a full scholarship to study computer science and moved into a small dorm room, barely scraping by on campus jobs and ramen noodles. During those years, I stopped answering my parents' calls. The holidays became awkward, silent affairs where I was a ghost in the family photos. Their happy birthday texts came once a year, nothing more. I didn't even bother showing up to family events anymore, because it was easier to pretend I didn't exist than to face their indifferent glances and forced smiles. Jason thrived in the spotlight, and I was invisible. Now, standing in my empty apartment with the last few boxes stacked by the door, I felt a mix of relief and hope. Seattle was more than just a new city for me. It was a chance to build a life that didn't revolve around being someone else's shadow. The job I'd landed, there was a dream opportunity at a tech startup that valued what I brought to the table. For the first time, I could imagine a future where my hard work was recognized, and I wasn't constantly fighting for scraps of attention. Mia, sitting on my couch that I wasn't taking with me, gave me a sympathetic look. "You really think this move will change everything?" she asked quietly, almost like she didn't want to hope too much either. I smiled, though it didn't quite reach my eyes. "I have to believe it will. I'm done being the forgotten one. I want to live for me, not for their approval." Ryan, wiping sweat from his brow after hauling another box, sat down beside Mia. "Have you ever thought about telling them? About your new job, your apartment, where you're really living?" I shook my head. "They don't care. They never asked. Why would I hand them the chance to drag me back into their world? If I told them, they'd just expect me to show up at every family event, pretend everything's fine, and swallow my pride for the sake of appearances." Mia frowned. "That's really harsh." "It's reality," I replied. For years, I was the kid who quietly faded into the background while Jason took center stage. Now, I'm finally stepping into the spotlight on my own terms. Packing the last box, I glanced around the apartment one final time. The empty shelves and bare walls felt symbolic. My past slowly boxed up and sent away, making room for whatever came next. I didn't know if I'd ever see this place again, but I didn't want to. I was ready to leave the disappointment behind and prove to myself that I could succeed without their approval. That night, as Mia and Ryan left, I sat on the floor surrounded by empty boxes, feeling a strange mix of loneliness and freedom. It was terrifying, but also exhilarating to think I was about to start a life completely separate from the family I'd known. The silence around me wasn't just emptiness, it was potential. The next morning, I boarded a flight to Seattle, clutching my boarding pass like a ticket to a new identity. For once, the future felt mine. No one had expectations. No one was waiting for me to fail or disappear. I was ready to prove that I could build a life on my own terms, without waiting for anyone's permission or recognition. Looking out the airplane window, the clouds stretched out endlessly, a soft, white blanket covering the world below. For the first time in years, I felt hopeful. Not because I was running away, but because I was moving towards something I deserved: respect, success, and a family of my own choosing. In Seattle, the apartment was smaller than I'd imagined, but perfect for me. The job was everything I hoped for: challenging, rewarding, and full of people who saw my worth without the baggage of my family's neglect. Slowly, I started to rebuild not just my life, but my self-worth. Mia and Ryan visited often, becoming the family I'd chosen, and every promotion, every successful project felt like a quiet victory against all the years of being ignored. 6 months into this new life, I finally felt like I belonged somewhere. Yet, even in this bubble of peace and accomplishment, I knew the past wasn't done with me. I hadn't told my family a single word about my move, my success, or the life I was building far away from their expectations. And for good reason. They still didn't see me, not really. But that was about to change. One evening, as I was wrapping up work, my phone rang, and the screen flashed an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, expecting it to be a sales call or spam, but something made me pick up. The voice on the other end was all business and barely disguised irritation. "Emma, it's your father," he said sharply. "You need to come home for your brother's wedding next month in Chicago. We expect you there." That moment, I realized that no matter how far I ran or how much I succeeded, the family drama wasn't finished with me yet. The question was whether I would let it pull me back or stand my ground, once and for all. The call from my father hit me like a punch I didn't see coming, sharp and cold with an edge of command that left no room for negotiation. He didn't start with pleasantries or ask how I was doing. Instead, he demanded my presence at Jason's wedding in Chicago, and the way he said it made it clear this wasn't a request, but an order I was expected to obey. My throat tightened, and I swallowed hard before responding, trying to keep my voice steady despite the flood of emotions rising inside me. "I'm not coming," I said firmly, as calmly as I could manage. "I'm building a life here, far from everything I left behind." He didn't hesitate to escalate, his tone darkening as he laid out the consequences I already feared: disinheritance, a complete severing of ties, the family name stripped away as if it meant something to me. "If you don't come back for the wedding, you're out," he said. "No more inheritance, no more family." The absurdity of it made me laugh out loud, a humorless sound that echoed in the quiet room. I told him, "Go ahead. I make more money than you, Mom, and Jason combined. I don't need your money or your approval." For a moment, silence filled the line, thick and heavy, before he recovered and launched into a string of guilt trips and accusations. They said I was selfish, ungrateful, a black sheep who didn't understand the importance of family. But they didn't know the half of it. None of them had ever cared about my struggles, my sacrifices, or the late nights I spent working to build the career they always ignored. They had chosen to worship at Jason's altar while I fought alone, invisible and unacknowledged. I told Mia and Ryan everything the minute I hung up, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and exhaustion. They listened without judgment, their faces serious and sympathetic. Mia shook her head slowly and said, "It's unbelievable how little they see you, Emma. They act like you don't even exist until they need you to play a part." Ryan nodded and added, "You've earned every bit of success on your own, and they're trying to pull you back into their drama because they're threatened." Days turned into a relentless storm of phone calls, texts, and emails. My mother's voice was softer but equally persistent, filled with pleas and half-hearted apologies, trying to convince me that family was worth sacrificing for, even if it meant swallowing my pride and pretending everything was fine. Jason sent messages too, a mix of sorrow and veiled frustration, telling me he wished things could be different, but hinting that my absence was making everything harder for him. It was all exhausting, and I shut it all out by blocking numbers and letting calls go to voicemail. One night, after a particularly heated exchange with my father, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. Pictures of birthdays, holidays, and family vacations where I was always on the edges, smiling, but never truly part of the moment. It stung more than I expected, but then I remembered why I left. They had never really wanted me there, and now they only wanted me back because it suited their image. Mia and Ryan stayed by my side through it all, grounding me when the pressure felt unbearable. Mia reminded me that true family was the one you chose, the people who celebrated your victories without asking for anything in return. Ryan joked about starting a support group for people like me, those who escaped toxic family webs and finally found peace. Their friendship became my sanctuary, a place where I could be myself without fear of judgment or expectation. Despite the chaos from afar, my life in Seattle was thriving. I threw myself into work, earning praise from my boss and respect from my colleagues. The projects I led challenged me and reminded me why I'd chosen this path. Each paycheck was a small victory, proof that I was capable of building something lasting and real without their approval. I even started looking at houses online, dreaming of a place that was truly mine, a sanctuary free from the shadows of my past. Still, the calls and messages kept coming, relentless and invasive, a constant reminder that I couldn't fully escape the family drama no matter how far I moved or how successful I became. Some messages tried guilt, others bribery, and a few were outright angry demands. It was like they suddenly remembered I existed only because they needed me to uphold their illusion of a perfect family. One afternoon, after ignoring calls for 3 days straight, my grandmother Evelyn called. Her voice was gentle and warm, a stark contrast to the storm of my parents' demands. She asked how I was settling in Seattle and listened with genuine interest as I talked about my new job and the life I was building. For the first time in years, I felt someone in my family truly cared. Evelyn didn't pressure me to return or soften the harsh reality of my parents' behavior. Instead, she said she understood why I wanted distance and assured me that I didn't have to do anything I wasn't ready for. Her support was a balm to my weary soul, and I clung to it as I navigated the ongoing tension. That weekend, instead of answering the phone again, I went hiking in the nearby mountains with Mia and Ryan. The fresh air and sprawling views reminded me why I'd chosen this path. The family drama felt miles away up there, replaced by a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I promised myself that no matter what my parents said or did, I wouldn't let their expectations dictate my happiness or my future. But I knew the wedding wasn't the end of it. The calls from my father kept coming, and with each one, the stakes seemed to rise. "Emma, you don't understand how important this is for Jason," he said in one call, desperation creeping into his voice. "The fiancé's parents want to see you. They need to believe we're a normal, loving family." That demand was more than I could handle. I had never been part of their family's narrative, and suddenly, I was expected to step into a role I never auditioned for. I told my father again, more firmly this time, that I wouldn't be coming back for the wedding or any dinner party. I was done playing their games. Their silence after that call was telling. It felt like the calm before another storm, and deep down, I wondered how long I could keep standing my ground before the pressure became unbearable. But for now, I was safe in Seattle, surrounded by people who saw me, valued me, and believed in me. And that was enough. The day of Jason's wedding arrived without me, though I could feel its shadow stretching all the way to Seattle, poking through the calm I'd built for myself. Social media exploded with pictures from the ceremony. Jason grinning in his tuxedo, the bride radiant beside him, the guests laughing and raising glasses in celebration. Everyone looked so perfect, so happy, but the absence of one key person didn't escape the whispers behind those smiles. My name wasn't mentioned, but the empty space I left was more noticeable than any congratulations or well wishes. Strangely, it wasn't just my family who felt the tension. A few days after the wedding, my grandmother Evelyn called me, her voice heavy with concern. She told me that the bride's parents had confronted my parents during the reception, and the conversation had quickly turned sour. Apparently, the in-laws had done their own digging and discovered the truth behind my absence and the years of neglect I'd endured. They weren't happy about how I had been treated, and they made their feelings known in no uncertain terms. My grandmother explained that the bride's parents didn't want to marry their daughter into a family that clearly didn't function like a family at all. They questioned whether Jason's upbringing had prepared him for marriage or whether the dysfunction was deeper and more damaging than anyone wanted to admit. That confrontation, Evelyn said quietly, caused a rift between the two families that cast a shadow over what should have been a joyful occasion. I could almost picture the tension, the whispered arguments, and the forced smiles trying to cover up the real feelings simmering beneath the surface. Jason wasn't spared from the fallout either. According to Evelyn, he looked uncomfortable and distracted for most of the ceremony, as if carrying the weight of family secrets he couldn't share. He kept checking his phone, likely hoping I'd change my mind and show up, even though I had made it clear I wouldn't. The bride's family asked him why he had never mentioned having a sister or why I wasn't part of his life, and the answers he gave apparently did little to satisfy them. It was clear from what Evelyn said that the wedding was far from the happy, perfect event Jason had hoped for. When I heard this, I didn't feel the usual pang of guilt or regret. Instead, I felt a strange mix of vindication and relief. Vindication that the truth was finally coming to light, and relief that I wasn't the one trapped in that toxic cycle anymore. My parents had spent years pretending everything was fine, and now the cracks were showing for everyone to see. The perfect family image they worked so hard to maintain was crumbling. Evelyn was the only family member who reached out with honesty and kindness. She reminded me that I wasn't responsible for their mistakes and that I deserved to live a life free from their drama and neglect. Her support felt like a lifeline, a connection to the part of my family that still cared without judgment or demands. I told her about my new apartment, my job, and how I was finally starting to feel like myself again. She listened and encouraged me to keep moving forward, to build the life I wanted on my own terms. Meanwhile, Jason's wedding drama became a topic of hushed conversations among distant relatives and mutual friends. Some sympathized with me, recognizing the pattern of favoritism and neglect, while others whispered that I was the one causing trouble by refusing to show up. The truth, of course, was more complicated than any of them realized. I wasn't just absent because I didn't want to be there. I was protecting myself from a family that never truly saw me. The whole experience reinforced why I'd made the choice to move away and cut ties. No matter how much they tried to pull me back in with promises and guilt, I knew that returning would mean stepping back into a world where my value was measured only by how well I fit their narrative. I wasn't willing to sacrifice my peace and independence for the sake of appearances. In the weeks that followed, I continued to focus on my work and my new life. The promotion I received at the tech company was a bright spot amidst the lingering family tension. It felt like a reward for all the years I spent fighting to prove myself, not to them, but to myself. Mia and Ryan celebrated with me, reminding me that success tasted sweeter when shared with people who genuinely cared. Yet, even with all this progress, the calls and messages didn't stop completely. Every now and then, a new message from my parents or Jason would slip through the cracks. Half-hearted apologies, attempts to reconnect, or thinly veiled requests for forgiveness. I read them, but I didn't respond. I knew that healing wouldn't come from patching up broken relationships on their terms. If it ever happened, it would have to be on mine. Through it all, my grandmother remained my anchor. She continued to share updates about the family from a distance, often revealing more than my parents or Jason were willing to admit. She spoke of arguments and regrets, of realizations too little and too late. Hearing this made me feel less alone, like someone on the inside was finally acknowledging the truth. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the Seattle skyline light up against the night, I thought about the strange turn my life had taken. I had escaped the suffocating grip of a family that never valued me, only to witness their unraveling from afar. The wedding, meant to be a celebration, had instead exposed the fractures I'd spent years trying to forget. Despite everything, I felt a quiet strength growing inside me. The past was messy and painful, but it no longer defined me. I was building something new, something real, something mine. And that was worth more than any family drama or forced reunion. As the city buzzed below, I resolved to keep moving forward, not just for myself, but for the life I deserved. No matter what storms lay ahead, I knew I wouldn't be caught in their wake again. I was done being invisible, done being the forgotten one. This time, I was choosing my own story. After the dust of Jason's wedding had settled, I settled deeper into the life I had fought so hard to create for myself. A life built on my own terms and far away from the chaos I had left behind in Denver. The small apartment in Seattle had quickly become a sanctuary where I could breathe without fear of judgment or the constant pressure to be someone I wasn't. I poured myself into my work, taking on new projects with enthusiasm and proving to myself that success was possible even without their approval. The promotion at the tech startup was more than just a title change. It was validation for all the years I had struggled alone. Leading a team of developers gave me purpose and a sense of belonging that I'd never felt in my family. Each day, I woke up knowing that my contributions mattered, that my voice was heard and respected. It was a stark contrast to the silence and neglect I had endured growing up. Despite my progress, the echoes of my past occasionally crept into my peaceful life. My phone buzzed sporadically with messages from my parents, Jason, and even distant relatives, each one a mix of apologies, excuses, and desperate attempts to reconnect. But I no longer felt the need to respond. Their words held little weight now, their promises feeling hollow after years of neglect. I knew that any genuine change would require more than just a text or a phone call. My grandmother, Evelyn, remained the exception. She was the one family member who consistently checked in, offering support without conditions or expectations. Her calls were a reminder that not all ties were broken beyond repair, and that some connections could still be nurtured, even from afar. She shared stories of family events I wasn't part of, giving me glimpses into a world I had chosen to leave behind but still cared about in some way. One afternoon, as I scrolled through real estate listings during a break at work, I stumbled upon a house that felt like it was meant for me. It was a modest three-bedroom with a spacious backyard, nestled in a quiet neighborhood just outside the city. The listing highlighted excellent internet connectivity and proximity to hiking trails, both perfect for my lifestyle. I felt a spark of excitement and possibility that I hadn't experienced in years. After contacting the realtor, I scheduled a viewing for the following weekend. Walking through the house felt surreal. The empty rooms echoed with potential and hope. I imagined setting up my home office in the sunlit corner, hosting friends for dinner in the cozy dining room, and spending weekends tending to a small garden in the backyard. For the first time, I felt like I could truly put down roots and create a home that reflected who I was. Buying the house was a milestone that symbolized more than just financial success. It was a declaration of independence and self-worth. Signing the papers felt like closing a chapter on the past and opening a new one filled with possibilities. I knew that my family's absence from my life didn't diminish my achievements. If anything, it made them more meaningful because I had earned every bit of them on my own. Even as I settled into my new home, the remnants of family drama occasionally surfaced. My parents continued to ask mutual relatives for my contact information, desperate to bridge the gap I had created. I was careful to protect my privacy, sharing my new number and address only with those I trusted. The boundaries I had set were firm and non-negotiable. One quiet Sunday afternoon, my grandmother called with an update that only deepened my resolve. She told me about a tense conversation between my parents and the bride's family from Jason's wedding. The in-laws were still upset about my absence and the family's dysfunction, raising concerns about the kind of environment Jason was entering into. Hearing this news gave me a bittersweet satisfaction, knowing that my decision to stay away had stirred consequences that my family had to face without me. Through it all, I focused on nurturing the relationships that truly mattered, friends like Mia and Ryan, colleagues who valued my work, and my grandmother, whose unconditional support reminded me that family could be chosen, not just given. I cultivated a sense of belonging that was authentic and fulfilling, far removed from the pretense and pain of my past. Reflecting on the journey, I realized that the hardest part wasn't the distance or the silence from my parents. It was accepting that their version of family never included me in the way I needed. That acceptance freed me to build a life rooted in self-respect and genuine connection. I wasn't defined by their neglect. I was defined by my resilience and the choices I made to create a better future. As I sat on my porch one evening, watching the sun set behind the Seattle skyline, I felt a profound sense of peace. The house around me was more than just a building. It was a testament to my strength and independence. The struggles of the past no longer held power over me, and the future stretched out like the open sky, full of promise and possibility. In that moment, I knew that no matter what came next, I was ready to face whatever challenges life threw my way with confidence and grace, ready to embrace the life I had earned and the happiness I had fought so hard to find. And most importantly, ready to be the author of my own story, free from the shadows of a family that never truly saw me. Just when I thought the story of my family and me had finally settled into a quiet, manageable chapter, life threw a curveball I never expected and changed everything in an instant. It began with an anonymous letter arriving at my new home, addressed simply to Emma, without any return address or explanation. I remember holding the envelope in my hands, feeling a mix of curiosity and unease as I broke the seal and pulled out the folded pages inside. The letter contained medical test results, revealing a hereditary illness that ran through my family, a secret they had kept hidden from me all along. The news hit me like a thunderclap. This was something that Jason and my parents had known about for years, but had never shared, never warned me about, never offered support, or even a simple conversation. The letter's writer implied that the decision to withhold this information was deliberate, a way to keep me uninformed and separate from the family's future plans. I felt a wave of betrayal and confusion wash over me. But beneath that, there was a deeper, more unsettling question. Why did they think I didn't deserve to know? For days, I sat with the letter on my kitchen table, turning the pages over in my mind, trying to understand what it meant for me and what I should do next. Should I reach out to my family and confront them? Should I seek medical advice and prepare for whatever was coming? Or should I protect myself further by continuing to distance myself from the people who had already caused so much pain? The choices felt overwhelming, each with consequences I wasn't ready to face. I called Mia and Ryan, sharing the letter and my fears. Mia's voice was steady, offering practical advice and encouraging me to get a full medical evaluation immediately. Ryan reminded me that no matter what, I wasn't alone, that we would face this together. Their support was a lifeline, reminding me that family wasn't just about blood or past wounds, but about the people who stood by you when everything felt uncertain. Despite the fear and anger bubbling inside me, I knew I had to face this head-on. I scheduled appointments with specialists, gathered information, and started making plans to protect my health. It was a harsh reminder that no matter how far I'd come, some parts of my past still had the power to reach into my life and demand attention. But this time I was ready. I wasn't going to let the secrets and silence of my family define me or dictate my future. The discovery also forced me to rethink my relationship with my family entirely. The fact that they had kept this from me, watching from the sidelines as I navigated my life without this crucial information, made me question everything I thought I knew about them. Their neglect had taken a new, darker form. Not just emotional abandonment, but a willful withholding of something vital. It was a betrayal that cut deeper than any argument or missed holiday. Yet, beneath the bitterness and betrayal, there was a flicker of something unexpected, a chance for clarity, maybe even healing. The letter, anonymous though it was, opened a door that I hadn't known existed. It challenged me to confront the past not just with resentment, but with courage and honesty. If I wanted to truly move forward, I had to face this truth, no matter how painful. I reached out to Evelyn, my grandmother, who had always been my closest ally. When I told her about the letter and the secrets it revealed, she didn't hesitate. She offered to help me navigate the medical and emotional fallout and promised to stand by me no matter what. Her unwavering support became a beacon in the storm, a reminder that some bonds were stronger than the fractures of the past. As I wrestled with the decision of whether to confront my parents and Jason, I found myself torn between anger and a surprising hint of hope. Maybe this revelation could finally bring the conversations we'd never had, the honesty that had always been missing. Or maybe it would just confirm everything I'd feared about their true nature. The uncertainty was terrifying, but I knew I couldn't stay in the dark any longer. One night, as I sat on my porch watching the city lights flicker against the night sky, I sent a message to Mia. Maybe some things are worth coming back for, but only on my terms. The words felt heavy but true. I wasn't ready to forgive or forget, but I was willing to consider facing the family I had spent years running from, armed with knowledge and boundaries that finally belonged to me. The story didn't end with neat resolutions or happy reunions. Instead, it left me standing at the edge of a new beginning, uncertain and vulnerable, but also stronger and more determined than ever. Life had thrown me a twist I hadn't expected, but it had also given me a chance to rewrite the narrative, to take control of my future, no matter what shadows lingered behind. And as my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number, I hesitated, my heart pounding, wondering if this was the moment everything would change, or if it was just another reminder that some battles were far from over.